moving into what I wanted to talk about today. Today I just wanted to follow up on my speech last week a bit. I gave a lot of context and notes on the slave narratives that we use for the stories of Americans who were born into slavery. And at this point, I just want to share a little bit more of the writing about those and then share a story from it that I think encapsulates what I've been talking about this week and last week. So this is continuing from a lot of the text I read last week about how valuable these narratives are. Two other major questions surrounding the use of slave narratives concern, first, whether the interviewers were able to elicit candid responses from their informants, and second, whether the informants, what the informant said was actually recorded. It is axiomatic that the quality of an interview depends on the skill of the individual who obtains it. The quality of typewritten accounts contained in the collection is grossly uneven, reflecting the varied talents of the federal writers. Most of the interviewers were amateurs, inexperienced, and unsophisticated in the use of interview techniques. Most expressed little concern about problems of distortion inherent in the interview process and were insensitive to the nuances of the interview procedure. A questionnaire devised by Lomax suggesting possible categories of discussion was often partially or totally ignored, frequently resulting in rambling and trivial comments. When the questionnaire was too closely followed, the result was stylized and superficial responses, devoid of spontaneity. Moreover, it is a problem how accurately the interviewers wrote down exactly what the informant said, especially when, as in many narratives, there was a great attention given to dialect. In addition, as Rawit's searches of the state writers' projects indicate, some of the writers and editors themselves undertook efforts to revise, alter, or censor accounts. And I think this speaks to a lot of what Rick was saying about how difficult it can be to see history through all the lenses and all the complications and all the nuances. And I think that these stories are such a valuable example of trying to understand history while keeping that all in mind. So keeping in mind a lot of the criticisms, I want to quickly read the words of John H. Logan, age 89. This is an excerpt of what he said to his interviewer. "Be patient with me, ma'am," Logan began. "I can't remember so good. I want to get it all right. I don't want to spoil my record now. I've been honest all my life, always stood up and always told the truth, done what was right. I don't want to spoil things and lie in my mouth now. Give me time to think. Things have been mighty hard for me the last few years. Seems like we were going to get the pension. First they had the rule that we'd have to sign away the home if we got $9.99 a month. Well, my wife's daughter was taking care of us. Even if we got the $9, she'd still have to help. She wasn't making much, but she was dividing everything, going without shoes and everything. So we thought it wasn't fair to her. To sign away our home after all she'd done for us. She had done for us. When we was dead, they'd just kick us out when she'd been so good to us. So we says no. We've been told that they changed that rule, but we can't seem to get help at all. Maybe, miss, there's something you can do." An interview which says so much more about the context than anything that was said. How he talks to the interviewer, what he talks about, the unsurety and the worry in his voice. I think this speaks to the efforts that are necessary to see history in ways that we can learn from it and gain from it. And I'm proud that this is part of that process. But we can never forget that while a lot of what I share is supposed to be direct and as illuminating as we can figure out, a lot of them have lines like this, where the interviewees themselves are like, I don't know if this will be completely right, or I don't know if I'm remembering it. We have to keep these things in mind as we uncover our history. There is a lot of our history to be excited, passionate, and proud of, but it cannot be found until we see it through clearer eyes than we've looked at it historically. A lot of these ideas are something I'd never even considered when it comes to first-person accounts of oppressed people in history. But all of these issues apply to those groups as a whole. We need to keep learning, we need to keep working, and when we do so, I do think we find amazing things and interesting parts of our history to celebrate.